Well, isn't that nice? I'm not going to start over. Before we kick it over to Marissa, I do want to note that we have a couple of minutes after each presenter for questions, if you like, from the audience. I would ask that all of you keep your questions on the topic to the presenters, and I might have a few, Joel might have a few. And if you have a more generic question about a particular water topic not being discussed today, we should have a few minutes at the end of the presentations where those questions can be asked. For anyone joining today on Zoom to watch these presentations, if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand, and one of our technicians here will feature you on the screen. Unless you're called to ask a question, we do ask that you please stay muted to minimize any background noise. We all hear that on Zooms. So once again, thank you all for being here today, and we'd like to kick it over to Marissa. Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. That was a terrific introduction, Senator Coles. Thank you. So the Freshwater Collaborative of Wisconsin was started about 4.5 years ago, and we like to start with a recognition of all the beautiful waters of Wisconsin. So as a system of universities of Wisconsin, we share stewardship of the land and water between the Michigami, which we all saw this morning, the full system of Great Lakes, and Michizzibi, the Great Mississippi River, with the current sovereign nations of Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Ojibwe, Oneida, and Mohican people, along with the ancestors before them. Together, we commit to being connected to this space, increasing our knowledge of it, and transmitting that knowledge to future generations. The Freshwater Collaborative is a network of the 13 UW universities around Wisconsin. And if you think about the state of Wisconsin, we really have so much water. And we have 13 UW universities that all have a focus on a different version of water. We could go over, right? Like there's water business at Whitewater. There's freshwater sciences in Milwaukee. There's limnology at Madison. There's the estuarine reserve at Green Bay. There's, and on and on and on, agriculture, Platteville, et cetera. So what we wanted to do when we started the Freshwater Collaborative was pull them together rather than having 13 siloed water education and research programs. We wanted to say, let's collaborate. Let's make sure we're all talking. And so our vision has always been threefold. Create knowledge to solve freshwater challenges across these water systems and across Wisconsin. And these should be interdisciplinary groups. I'm thinking of UW Stout. They focus on the social science of water, not just studying the physical science of water. They also have economics at different universities. Then we want to recruit and retain talented undergrads to that water system, to the UW system, so that they can be trained with curriculum, hands-on learning, and workplace experiences. And that in turn will lead to improved well-being of natural ecosystems and all people in Wisconsin. When we started the Freshwater Collaborative, we really focused on 10 grand water challenges that face Wisconsin. And in talking to the Wisconsin State Legislature, we really focus on the first and the third, right? Agricultural water management and water quality and emerging contaminants. We all know that these two issues are huge hot topics. And when you think about things that we research in Wisconsin, it includes phosphorus, nitrates, it includes PFAS, it includes minimizing agricultural water to maximize agricultural output. Those are just some things we work on. And as we meet these challenges, we cannot. Nice. That's great. We have a lot going on here technology wise. You have it's wild. Here we go. Thank you so much. Good point. So we want to continue to collaborate so that we can access and work on these challenges together. Here we go. And we support collaborative Wisconsin projects. The Freshwater Collaborative receives $5 million every 2 years from the Wisconsin State Legislature, and we give away 2.1 million of that every year in grants and programmatic funding that help researchers and students apply that knowledge in the field, in laboratories, and in the classroom. We really focus on the pipeline to jobs. So that's recruiting students to study water, getting them field experiences in labs and outside, and then putting them in internship opportunities all across Wisconsin. So the next speaker we have is Greg Kleinheinz from UW Oshkosh and Kathy Wunderlich from Jacobs Engineering.
Great. Thank you, Marissa. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank all of you for being here again, Senator Coles, Representative Kitchens. This has been my home for the last 21 years. So our lab runs a beach monitoring program for the county of Door here. We also have, we're open to the public and local businesses for water testing. So I get no better joy than offloading my college students in May and then coming up to Door County. So it's great to be here. So excuse me. I represent UW Oshkosh. I'm also run the ERIC Lab, the Environmental Research and Innovation Center, which is really the only training center of its kind in the UW system, where we contract with businesses throughout North America, including around Wisconsin. And in fact, just in Door County, because we're here at Crossroads, I'll just point you to our lab here. Our students live in the center of the county in Bailey's Harbor, and we even have drop-offs out in Washington Island so businesses can drop off things. There's been about, I counted them up the other day. I'm old. It really makes you feel old when you do this. 120 different students have come through programming and training in the county of Door, and over 600 students in our program in general. So we've done over $25 million of contracts and grants, and I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but our main focus is really to promote the Wisconsin idea. That is transferring the knowledge of the faculty, staff, and mostly our students to businesses in Wisconsin and then beyond the borders of the state. So that results in really unique hands-on applied learning. And I'll just point to the last bullet. In my view, this is a new model of teaching research and industry. So the equipment and supplies and things that we use on a daily basis don't get used for one class, one semester a year. We're open 365 days a year, and that's not an exaggeration. We have students that come in on Christmas, Thanksgiving, because we have things that are running, and we don't follow an academic calendar. So the Freshwater Collaborative has been a vital partner in that effort. So we don't just serve UW Oshkosh students. In Door County for the last 2 years, we haven't even had an Oshkosh student. We've had every student, every campus represented in our programs, and at our main campus in Oshkosh during the we also have students from other programs as well. So, we at the UW are kind of all one big, I don't know if we're always happy, but we're a family anyway. And so we're really pleased to sort of share that experience with students from other campuses. And these collaborations are really the core of my interest at the UW and then beyond and my future after the UW. And so this is just a smattering, and I apologize if we forgot your logo. I was doing the best I could to put everybody up there. When you do that, it's like thanking people at a wedding. You forget Uncle John or something. But one of our most recent collaborations and really successful collaborations that involved dozens and dozens of students from throughout the system, going all throughout the state of Wisconsin, has been with Jacobs Engineering, and it's provided a wonderful opportunity for students to not only enhance what they've done in the classroom, but then go beyond the borders of that their work and then interface with business and industry across the state. And so with that, I'll turn it over to our partner, Kathy Wunderlich from Jacobs. I think I see Kathy's face.
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marissa,
thank you. And then, all right. Well, thank you for giving us this opportunity. I am Kathy Wunderlich with Jacobs Engineering. And we'll talk a little bit about what we've been doing with the Freshwater Collaborative and the universities across the state for the last year, and we'll be doing for the next 6 months to potentially 4 years. As you've all heard about the lead crisis in Flint that started in April of 2014, there are no safe levels of lead in drinking water. The lead and copper rule was first established in 1991, and the lead and copper rule revisions went into effect actually October 16th of 2024. Next slide. And one of the requirements was that every community water system across the nation develop a lead service line inventory. That compliance date was October 16th. And what it requires essentially is that every community water system and regulated water system develop an inventory of all the service lines that feed water from the water main to the home or the building. And it needs to account for both the system side owned by the water utility, as well as the property side owned by the property owners. And as you can imagine, the majority of water systems do not have any information on the property side, and they do not necessarily have very good records of what they have on the public side, on the water utility side. Next slide. So the bipartisan infrastructure law has been providing billions of dollars across the nation for a variety of different types of emerging contaminants, lead in drinking water, a variety of infrastructure needs. And one of those that was specifically targeted was to help water systems develop these inventories or to provide technical assistance to the water systems. Wisconsin is one of the states that received money that they could allocate in whatever way that they saw fit to help water systems overcome their challenges with lead in drinking water. And the DNR, they have 1,050 community water systems, which is actually the most out of any state. Wisconsin has the most water systems out of any state in the US, and 1,000 of those are community water systems. They identified 435 water systems that were small and disadvantaged that would need potential help in developing these service line inventories. And those are represented by the dots you can see sprinkled throughout the state. The size of the dot is representative of the number of service lines. The bigger the dot, the more service lines, and the smaller the dot, the fewer the service lines, but they span the entire breadth of the state. With those 435 water systems, there's about 100,000 service lines that need to be accounted for at an estimated 22,000 labor hours, which is essentially 20 professionals at 50% time. And there are not 20 professionals in any given company that have 50% free time. So on the next slide, we took this opportunity to reach out to the Freshwater Collaborative and ask their assistance to help us recruit students to help us help our Jacobs folks complete these inventories over the course of a year. So we had the first information session in the fall of 2023, hired 24 students. The Freshwater Collaborative helped us with all of the advertising, hosted our webinar, information webinar. They hosted the job posting. The UW helped conduct the interviews with the students. They took all the applications. So both were absolutely instrumental in helping us hire those 24 students. And then we've completed the work over the course of the year. And then now we are embarking on a second phase in which we just hired 18 students. We have 12 remaining from the first for a total of 30 students that are actively helping us over the next 6 months to develop inventories for water systems that received a federal violation for not completing it on time. Next slide. And one of the things that I wanted to show or talk a little bit about in the top left is a graph showing the number of hours of students shown in yellow versus the Jacobs folks shown in blue. They started at the very beginning and helped us until the bitter end. And through our peak months, we're putting in 50% of the labor hours that were put in on this project. On the top right is the platform that the students were using to help us develop the inventories. And then on the bottom left is shown a mural that we created for the students to be able to access and use that provided them the training that they needed to develop these inventories. And some of the takeaways that I would say that the students were able to learn and accomplish, is not only from a technical standpoint in the understanding water systems, their construction, how the records, those sorts of things, the terminology, but also how to work in a professional environment on teams with the team leader using professional platforms. And then also just how to function in a professional setting, in attending meetings, coming to the meetings prepared, contributing. And we are absolutely excited and hope to actually employ some of the students full time when they do graduate. And I think that should be my last slide. Yep.
Thank you, Kathy. So I think we do have a couple minutes for questions for Greg and Kathy. And great. Yes, please.
Just wondering, how did the students do the inventory? Was it just based on the age of the service lines, or did they visualize something to determine that it was lead, service pipe.
So let's go to Kathy on that one.
Yep,
Kathy,
you bet.
how did the students determine, did you hear the question?
Yeah, I did. Yep. So with each one of the water systems, we went on site. We had one Jacobs team leader and one student that accompanied us on the site visits. And when we went to the site visit, we reviewed all of the physical records that the water systems had. So there were construction drawings, specifications, maps, things of that nature. And we collected digital photos of all of those records. We stored them in a place that the students could access. And then the students would review all of the records and use the information that's provided on the records to determine what the inventory was of the material. So there's 4 pieces of information: the physical location of the service line, the year that it was constructed, the diameter, and the material. And so through all of the records, if they were able to glean that information, they would complete it. And if that information wasn't available, then those service lines are termed unknown, may contain lead.
Terrific. Yes, another question.
This is for housing. Door County has a critical shortage of affordable housing for students. How do you determine, you've got students living up in Bailey's Harbor, but they're sort of headquartered down here, they're commuting back and forth. From a sustainability point of view, that's really bad. How do you find housing? Who provides it? And how much does it cost?
All good questions. So the question was related to the housing of the students and the difficulty in finding housing, and then the commuting from Bailey's Harbor to Sturgeon Bay. So first and foremost, the students all don't commute from Bailey's Harbor to Sturgeon Bay and then go about their day. They actually, being in Bailey's Harbor, is centrally located. So if they have to go out to the island or up to Sister Bay or wherever, they actually start their day there and make their rounds. And then, so they don't all drive back here. So over the years, we've had a number of housing options for students. We've talked to rental agencies, individual homeowners, etc. And we just happen to have, I think we're on our 4th or 5th year of the same place, just some people that are renting their house and happy to have, I think, one renter for the whole summer. The cost, I think, is roughly $800 or $900 a month per student. And so that changes a little bit. So, but over the years, we've had houses down the road here. Wherever we can find something that's as affordable and reasonable as we can find it, and then also centrally located for that very reason. So we always have in the morning, we try to be as efficient as possible. So one person comes to the lab. So with the beaches, they put the samples in the afternoon. And so in order to tell whether the beaches are open and closed, the test is done at 8 a.m. the next day. And so now we even have started putting electric signs in with the county, so they can actually change it on an app at the lab instantaneously in Bailey's Harbor or Egg Harbor. And so only one student actually comes back here. And then when that student's done checking here, then they go out to Sunset or wherever, and then they sample the local beaches relative to Sturgeon Bay. And the other students, one might go up to Fish Creek and Ephraim and Egg, and the other one might go to Sister Bay and Ellison Bay, and the other one might do Bailey's Harbor and Jacksonport and kind of work that way. So we have kind of this network, and you can imagine with all the tourists, they discover all the shortcuts and easiest ways that don't involve following a lot of Illinois license plates around the country.
Great. We're gonna move on to Jill Coleman-Wasek from UW River Falls. Jill, I'm just gonna move the slide forward.
Thank you, Marissa. Well, thank you for giving me some time to talk about, can you hear me? Maybe I should check that first.
Got it. Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you for giving me some time to talk about our program, our Freshwater Collaborative funded program, the Dam Crew. I'm over in River Falls, so I apologize I couldn't get there today for it to be in person. I would have loved to have been there, but thanks for making this virtual option available instead. So a little background on the Dam Crew. In 2016, the city of River Falls began this really extensive community planning process to decide how to develop the Kinnickinnick River corridor. So the Kinnickinnick River runs, and this is, well, maybe I should say it's the Kinnickinnick. because on the east side of the state is the Kinnickinnick. So the Kinnickinnick River runs through right through the heart of the city of River Falls. And the Kinney, as we know it, is an economic, social, and ecological centerpiece of the town and the surrounding region. Through the planning process that River Falls engaged in, the decision was made to actually relinquish a couple of licenses on the two small dams that we have in town. They're small hydroelectric dams. They're run-of-the-river dams, and they were aging, and so the community really needed to make a decision about what their future would be. Because of the river's importance to the community, because of its status as an outstanding resource water in the state of Wisconsin, that's an actual designation that it has, and its premier trout fishery. It has one of the densest populations of trout in the entire state. There was a great deal of interest in understanding how dam removal would actually impact the ecological health of the Kinney. So the community process went forward. Decisions were made to relinquish those licenses and eventually remove the dams. And along with that sort of decision process, the Kayaptawish chapter of Trout Unlimited and the newly formed nonprofit Kinney Corridor Collaborative approached me and UWRF in 2021 to explore the possibility that our students and our staff and our faculty would help the community implement this 10-year river monitoring plan that they had developed that would track the changes in stream health, stream habitats, and stream channel before, during, and after the dam removal. So this community need was the genesis of the data analysis and monitoring crew, or as we call it, the DAM crew. The DAM crew is really a workforce development, student training experience that we offer in River Falls. It's supported by the Freshwater Collaborative, and students spend 2 weeks immersed in river restoration and monitoring practices while meeting the specific needs of our community. The project is really important because it gives our students hands-on real-world technical skills that they can use when they go out into the job market. It's grounded in service to our community, which is really important to us, and it improves our understanding of this unique and valuable natural resource. I've been asked to talk about, what are the benefits to students? Well, I think some of our students, our past participants, have said it best, so I'll give some direct quotes from them. So, quote, "I feel a lot more prepared to enter the workforce. Before I was on the fence about what I wanted to do. This cemented that I want to work with rivers and environmental restoration. It's great to do the work and meet the people, to see that this work matters and is worth doing. I got to really see how important the science is to the entire city and the entire watershed. It's not just doing the science, but helping the communities that the science is connected to." And then we had another participant also say, quote, "Seeing how the Wisconsin DNR and Trout Unlimited and the Kinney River Land Trust all work together was eye-opening for me. Kent Johnson from Trout Unlimited and Sean Morrison from Interfluve gave us a very different point of view than our professors. Sean showed us so many different projects that he's worked on, some of the problems he's had to deal with, and what they did," end quote. So we've really built this project around student needs. Students work intensively for 2 weeks with a professional geomorphologist from Interfluve, which is a nationwide river restoration consulting firm. And they also work with their professors and some staff at River Falls. Students become trained technicians as they observe and measure and document stream conditions in the service of carrying out this monitoring plan on the Kinney River. Students also get to broaden their professional network because they interact with professionals from industry, like Interfluve. They interact with professionals at private nonprofits like Trout Unlimited, the Kinney River Land Trust, the Kinney Corridor Collaborative. They interact with professionals at public agencies like the Wisconsin DNR, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, even the National Park Service. And they interact with professionals at local governments like the City of River Falls and at St. Croix and Pierce counties. Beyond the technical and professional benefits that students reap from this program, they also get the chance to envision a clearer pathway between their academics and their potential future careers. They experience a sense of purpose that came through really clearly in all 3 years that we've offered this program. As they carry out their professional work in service to their community. They also expand their understanding of how to work with stakeholders, which is a really important skill that students don't always get from even internships or working in the lab for the summer. And so students also, they get to develop a stronger sense of place, a stronger sense of connection to Wisconsin natural resources, a stronger connection to the Caney River. We also work with a lot of external partners, as I mentioned. Students are trained by practicing geomorphologists at Interfluve, and they also meet a lot of those professionals at the public and private organizations who are working on issues that sort of intersect with their dam crew experience. So they get to see this sort of holistic view of all the professionals that tend to work together on these large projects. Our external partners benefit directly from the work that the dam crew students do because the students carry out the majority of the data collection and also the data organization. So we collect a lot of data and then we also organize it so that it's available. And this plan, right, this river monitoring plan is really community designed and was adopted by the community. So it's directly in service to their community. And so our external partners benefit from that as well. A direct quote from my colleague at Interfluve, it's very rare that we're able to do anything beyond photographic monitoring. Monitoring is always one of the first things that gets cut from any budgets. The Freshwater Collaborative funding did a great job of helping to train the next generation of water resource professionals, and it provided us with a data set that will provide really unique insights. Beyond that, external partners also gain access to future employees that have a well-developed set of technical skills and employees who have this more holistic understanding of what it really takes to work intensively in teams and across those stakeholder groups. Lastly, time and again, this is maybe a little less technical, but our external partners express this desire to see young professionals succeed, and they really find satisfaction playing some role in helping the next generation of young professionals. Lastly, benefits to the state of Wisconsin. This project benefits the state by providing a successful model of a public-private partnership that trains and develops the water workforce in the state. Communities across Wisconsin face a variety of water-related challenges, and those challenges could benefit from the concerted efforts of a group of young and motivated emerging professionals that are under the guidance of experts in the field. The dam crew itself, as a specific program, addresses this issue that many communities across the state are currently wrestling with as dam infrastructure in the state ages and costs of maintenance and repair also increase. So they're having to do sort of those cost-benefit analyses of whether or not these dams stay in. The project also enhances our understanding and protection of the state-designated natural resource. And lastly, we're carrying out the mission of higher education in Wisconsin to, not just keep things on campus, but to really extend that knowledge and application out beyond the campus to serve society. So I'm going to end there. Thank you again for this opportunity to share our experiences with this project. And I'm happy to take a few questions if there's time.
Yes.
So how accessible is the data that they generate?
How accessible is the data that you generate?
The data that we are generating is eventually going to be available in a sort of a public portal. The first year that students sort of collected, we use data organization as sort of a training opportunity for students because it's a really important technical skill. Like if you have a really large data set, how do you go about putting that into some sort of format that's approachable and accessible for people? So we spent a couple years sort of testing out what that would look like. Interfluve, the Caney Corridor Collaborative, and Trout Unlimited have an online portal that they're developing where that information is available. We also have students presenting in the community, and we've had a student go to a national conference as well to present information. So individual accessibility is coming. Presentation of information has been carried out already. Thank you.
Yes, up above first, yeah.
Have you had any issues of dealing with the social issues of removing a dam?
with the people in the neighborhood?
Oh, well, our students have encountered folks, we'll be in the river, and people are always curious about what are you doing in the river? And so our students have been sort of practicing those engagement skills with members of the community. Usually they're sort of separated from those questions about, should we remove the dams or not? Because they're doing some monitoring, and the monitoring itself, I think most people tend to see that as, oh, that's not dam removal itself. People certainly have opinions that they've come up and expressed, and we, welcome those conversations as part of our training opportunities. So thank you.
What were the data points? What kind of indicators of river health did the students focus their data collection on?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. So we're following established methods. We use the Wisconsin DNR's stream habitat quality assessment protocols. So we're looking at the sort of part of the texture of the materials that are at the bottom of the channel, because that can be really important for fish spawning habitat. And habitat for the bugs that the fish are eating, the trout are eating. I mean, let's be honest here. And then we look at vegetation in the stream corridor. So, is there good cover for the fish that are living in there? Good cover for the prey species of the fish as well. We look at algal coverage on the rocks and other things. That's sort of an indicator, a quick indicator of nutrient status. And then, when we find things, we can actually collect those water samples and send them off for a more expensive analysis. We're looking at sort of conditions of the land next to the river as well. So is there erosion? What's the vegetation like? Do we have a lot of buckthorn that's sort of crowding out and taking over and sort of inhibiting the growth of other plant species that might be really important in sort of maintaining the stability of those stream banks. We do some water quality measurements as well. Things like pH, dissolved oxygen, which is also crucial for fisheries, and the bug communities. Yeah, is that enough, or those are
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got it.
Enough to me.
Okay, great.
I could go
Yeah.
on.
One more question, yeah.
Is there any environmentally acceptable hydropower generation being looked at?
Oh, could you repeat that, please, Marissa?
Yep. Is there any, yeah,
Is there any acceptable environmental hydropower being developed?
any acceptable environmental hydropower being developed?
Oh gosh, I'm not a hydropower expert. So if the question is, related to sort of what replaces the dams, the city of River Falls is sort of making those decisions about its energy portfolio. I know they've installed some community solar, and so they're sort of rebalancing their energy portfolio as they see fit. The dams currently, one of them actually was damaged in a major storm that we had back in 2020. And so that one is not currently functional. And then the other one provides hydropower for about, I think it's 80 homes maybe in the city. So, from the city's perspective, we're a community of 15,000 people. So, they're feeling like, well, maybe we can meet some of those other needs in other places. But all those decisions are made at the city level. And I'm not aware that they're actually looking at other sustainable hydropower options at this time.
Did we have one more? So Jill is going to step off and not be available for questions at the end. So did you also have a question at the top? You didn't in the plaid. No. Okay, sorry. Oh, there we go. Yes. One more. Here we go.
Is there any idea percentage of students who graduate from your program that are retained here in the state? How many are getting poached to places like California, Washington, Oregon, where they are?
Jill, if you don't have an answer, Greg raised his hand.
Oh, I know I can speak for some of our students have, we just finished year 3 of our program, so some of our students haven't yet graduated. We have had some students though stay in the state of Wisconsin, and actually, if they haven't graduated, they've taken internships with Interfluve, and they've sort of they seem to be looking to home, not looking afield. So that would be my answer.
Greg, do you have data to,
Yeah, there's actually a lot of data on that at the comprehensive campuses. In fact, most of the students stay in Wisconsin. We've had 4 students actually stay in Door County. And in fact, the students from outside the geographic region where the comprehensive campus is, there's over 30% of those students stay in that region. So the comprehensive campuses are sort of net importers of talent and people. I mean, UW-Madison and UW-Milwaukee have their own sort of data, and so they operate a lot differently. But I know I've seen that data for us and some of the other ones, and I think some of the other comprehensives have similar sorts of experiences. So, most of the students are Wisconsin people. I mean, I grew up in Wisconsin, wanted to come back here, right? And I've been here, so they like being in Wisconsin for all the reasons we all do too. So I think that's a misnomer. I think a lot of times people always think people go to UW, they get a job, and then they move off to places. They may do that for a year or 2, but by and large, the students want to stay where they grew up and where they're comfortable. And even the students that come from, that's the data I didn't know, the students that come from other places and go to a UW campus, they actually stay in that area, a good portion, about a third of them. So, yeah.
thank you. Okay, we're going to move on with Emily Tyner from, she's the Director of Freshwater Strategy at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. So that it faces you. Oops. Hang on, right there. There we go.
Okay, great. Yep, thank you. Okay, thanks everybody. I was at Crossroads a few months ago talking about the National Estuary and Research Reserve designation. I'm talking about the other big project in our portfolio around water, which is the Freshwater Collaborative work. But eventually those 2 things will merge, I hope, and we'll move the Freshwater Collaborative projects under the NER umbrella in just a few years. So focusing on K through 12 work that we do in the Green Bay schools, and actually all the schools in the region. So this project is Freshwater Collaborative funded. It would not happen without Freshwater Collaborative funding, and it is focused on creating a K through 12 water education program for Northeast Wisconsin and a career pipeline within Northeast Wisconsin to show students, especially high school students, what careers are available in the water sectors across the state. We're promoting water science programs across the UW system at schools across our system, and then exposure to these water-related jobs. I'm going to talk about 4 parts of this project, 4 different components of it, but I just want to acknowledge that our work would not be possible without our partners. There's lots of them, but the key ones have been Ducks Unlimited, the Akanto Sportsman's Club, Wisconsin DNR, Atlas Science Center in Appleton, the Green Bay Area Public Schools, New Water, the Green Bay's Metropolitan Sewage District, and the Brown County Parks, among many others. In 2024 alone, this is the 3rd year of our project. This past summer, we offered water-focused experiences and research to over 1,300 middle and high school students, 12 undergraduate students, and 40 local educators. So this has 4 key parts that kind of all come together. A big one is a program we're calling Wild Rice in the Classroom. So wild rice is a native annual wetland grass that grows in shallow, clear water with lightly moving currents. It is also known as manumin in Ojibwe, and wild rice holds really important traditional, economic, cultural, spiritual values for Wisconsin's First Nations communities. There's historical accounts of wild rice along the shores and river mouths of the Bay of Green Bay, especially along the West Shore. And we are working through both restoration projects at our campus, but also this education program to reestablish wild rice in the Green Bay ecosystem. So with Freshwater Collaborative support, and especially Ducks Unlimited and the Akanto Sportsman's Club, we have been embarking on this Wild Rice in the Classroom program for students, really K through 12 students and educators. The program provides classrooms and their teachers and their students with supplies and instructions for growing wild rice in buckets across the winter season. So providing some hands-on learning. Our staff comes in the fall to help get the program started, talk about the importance of wild rice, get the seeding going. And then in the spring, the students bring their beginning wild rice plants out and help us kind of replant them and grow them in the ecosystems around Green Bay. And in the fall, like just this morning, in fact, we have students out at Barkhausen Wildlife or Waterfowl Preserve spreading seed to encourage population of wild rice. So this is, we've seen a lot of growth in this in both the Wild Rice in the Classroom program, interest in it from other schools, plus we've seen wild rice reestablish itself in the Green Bay system. There's a naturally occurring population around the Peshtigo area and Akanto, and we're starting to see some of it near Green Bay. The conditions there are a little bit more harsh for wild rice, but it's coming along. So my partners this morning who couldn't be here today are out with College of Menominee Nation students doing a wild rice seeding, as I said, at Barkhausen Waterfowl Preserve and talking about wild rice and restoration. We're really excited about that new partnership with the College of Menominee Nation. Our another program, our second of four, is this thing called the Lower Fox River Watershed Monitoring Program. So this is actually a 20-year program that's gone through some different funding sources. And now we kind of lost other funding that had run out. Now it's under our Freshwater Collaborative funded umbrella. I'm really proud of this. A 20-year initiative engaging students in water quality monitoring of streams and rivers. So students, mostly kind of schools and teachers, and then there's students from around Northeast Wisconsin, but kind of focus on the Fox Wolf River watershed, collect monthly samples of water quality health parameters at the streams close by to their schools. They provide the data to us at the university for assessment of these kind of streams. Most of them are feeder streams into the Green Bay ecosystem, the Green Bay watershed. And then that data helps us have this long-term monitoring data set. I think I heard, maybe it was Greg or Jill mentioned that it's really hard to get support for just baseline monitoring of conditions. But that is critical for understanding how the ecosystem is changing and improving over time. Programs like this, where we both get funding for this and we have students supporting it, really help us understand these baseline conditions and water quality around the Bay. Every spring, we hold a big symposium on our Green Bay campus where we invite the students, their teachers, and community and professionals to come hear about the research and hear the data presented. And this is middle schoolers and high school schoolers presenting the data to our kind of DNR partners, which is really cool. Here's our third project, which I really feel the most invested in, really proud of this one. We've grown it completely with Freshwater Collaborative support. This is a new initiative. This is a high school summer research program for high school students, where they're doing hands-on learning with faculty and staff on our Green Bay campus, on our campus in Manitowoc, and now with partners last year at Atlas Science Center, and then we have some land trust partners keyed up for next summer. We have had 25 students come through this in the last 3 years. And I really noticed, based on applications and where the demand is, that there's really nothing else like this in Northeast Wisconsin, where you're giving paid experiences to high school students to learn, do research and hands-on learning in water sectors. So in addition to working with a faculty member throughout the whole semester, we also do weekly career immersive experiences where we go out with water professionals around the region. Our most popular one is going out with the Wisconsin DNR to look for native mussels. That was a really big one last year. Last summer, that's what the top picture there. The bottom picture is going out with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to remove enclosures for piping plovers, locally a Great Lakes endangered species that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service protects. We do tours of New Water, the water utility in Green Bay. So all of this is focused on exposure to careers and then training. So we've had 3 summers of work. 4 of our students in the program who are now at college age, most are still in high school. 4 of them now are at UW system schools, 3 at Green Bay and 1 in Madison, and they're all doing work now in their classroom or in their college years, working with faculty on research programs. So that really is something that's exciting, is to kind of grow this network of research students from high school level. Like we had applicants from middle school last year, and we couldn't accommodate a middle school age student, but certainly there's demand there for more high school programs that are paid experiences for students. And another program we're growing is our trainings and resources and field experience for educators. So we have a network of, I think we have 90 educators now, from Marinette to Sheboygan to Appleton to Oshkosh. And throughout the year, we'll offer multiple trainings, curriculum development, and field experiences. As an example, this past year, we held a joint workshop with Wisconsin Sea Grant to have, and teachers came and educators, including educators from Crossroads, came and learned about how to teach with a watershed game. So incorporating this game into their classroom. We did it in the summer, we did a kayak exploration of Seagull Bar in Marinette with a Wisconsin DNR to kind of show students or show their teachers about local ecosystem concerns and having them out in the fields. And then in late summer, we held a teacher workshop at Atlas Science Center in Appleton to focus on energy and water, and then ways to incorporate all that into their classroom curriculum. That was focused on high school teachers and educators. So a few of the issues we have addressed through our programs are, I mean, really it's focused on middle school, high school students being exposed to water science degree programs in UW system and all the range of career opportunities in Wisconsin around water. Helping teachers connect to local resources. It's not just about us at the university, but our partners. We try to bring in a lot of partners to help teach these workshops, to offer these field experiences so teachers know there's a resource out there to learn and grow with around water, incorporating water into the work they do with their students. And then simply just helping students and teachers and people connect with the water and wetlands and shorelines in their community. So as many of you know, you can be close to water, but still be very disconnected if you don't know how to access it, how to get to it, you don't have transportation. So we're trying to provide things like buses, substitute teachers, food, the things that schools can always put money towards to bring students out and have experiences along the water and in nature. And that's just really heartwarming to see that kind of work. So finally, our kind of next 4 years, we have a few big goals. We're so thankful for Freshwater Collaborative support for this. Again, it wouldn't happen without this kind of support. We're trying to expand our existing programming to have a wider geographic footprint. We want to focus on all of our campus areas for UWGB, Marinette. We already have a good program in Manitowoc, but expand our work to Sheboygan and the Fox cities. We want to have more partners with our community to host interns. Like I mentioned, we've heard from the Northeast Wisconsin Land Trust, Upham Woods, potentially Crossroads, which we can explore about hosting high school students in the summer on our research program. And then having our students really concentrate on issues that are relevant in the water sector to our region, PFAS, emerging contaminants, the area of concern, all of those kind of projects that we do as researchers, we want our students to be doing as well. The Green Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve, which is coming, hopefully will be designated next year. It's a big initiative for Northeast Wisconsin to celebrate the Green Bay ecosystem. We want to move these programs kind of under the NER umbrella and have these kind of be part of our NER outreach materials and focus areas. We want to continue to work more closely with our First Nations partners and bring those perspectives to our work. That's really been an interesting area of growth for us with our relationship with the College of Menominee Nation. And then continue and build on our ability to really think about this schooling to jobs to careers pipeline for our students by exposing them to these jobs in the water sector and giving them these hands-on experiences really early in their high school career. So they're thinking about water as an area they want to go to and staying in Wisconsin to keep that workforce here. That's my main points, and I'm happy to take questions if there are any. Yeah.
How detrimental are phragmites to the reintroduction of wild rice?
Oh, that's a good question. Phragmites and wild rice. Those they don't always go so well together. The biggest thing we find with wild rice establishment though is predation by ducks and waterfowl. Because as soon as the seed gets out there, it's like a buffet for for those organisms. But certainly Phragmites, like other aquatic invasives, kind of choke out many other native plants in the area. But we're focused really on waterfowl and kind of keeping those away from that early predation on the seeds. Yes.
Wild rice, the most effective native plant to hold the shorelines to minimize erosion?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure if it's the most effective, but it's one of the things out there. And certainly it's important food source for ducks. And it's one more aquatic vegetation that creates a diverse landscape of plants that helps that kind of holding erosion and shorelines in place. So like any ecosystem, having a diversity of plants, especially native ones, is where you want to go for. And it's really exciting to be bringing back one that is native to our system. This is a wild rice project, but our restoration partners do lots of other plantings too. Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations on including high school students. Just wanted to comment, the city of New York City has a charter school. that is a maritime charter school. They look at all sorts of aspects of research and deep, you want to get into deep sea diving, you want to get into naval architecture, all those things are included in their curriculum along with their normal English, math, classes. My dream is one day here in Sturgeon Bay, we have a charter school. Pink and Terry and all the fisheries, everything, aquaculture. It would be wonderful. And this could be a headquarters for freshwater learning and sciences.
Yeah, Northeast Wisconsin is a key place to do freshwater learning. I mean, the whole state is, but especially we're surrounded by on three sides. I'll say that the Wisconsin Shipwreck Marine Sanctuary has a new educator coming on board, and they're also focused a lot of this career work. So yeah, exciting ideas. Yes.
Yeah, my question relates to NERC.
Yeah.
Are we getting closer to choosing a site for the visitor and research center? We know that Sturgeon Bay is one of the candidates. Obviously, I'm somewhat biased.
Yeah, we're really focused right now on the designation. We've kind of put the visitor center infrastructure on hold until we can get through these two big major milestones, but we'll probably be circling back to it next year. And we do know that Sturgeon Bay is very interested in this. But it's an opportunity for the region, which I have to keep talking about. Happy to talk to you more offline about it.
Thank you so much, Amy. Okay, up next is Michael Holly, Associate Professor at UW Green Bay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Holly. I'm an environmental engineer at UW Green Bay. Today, I'm going to be presenting on a project initially funded by the Freshwater Collaborative, investigating low-cost filter media for nutrient removal. Next slide, please. So as motivation, currently 742 of the rivers and lakes in Wisconsin are listed as impaired or do not meet the water quality standards set by the US EPA and Wisconsin DNR for one or more parameter. And on the right, you can see that nutrients is the major reason for designation as impairment. Next slide, please. So what happens with these excess nutrients? Excess nutrients, specifically phosphorus, result in algal blooms in southern Green Bay. As microbes decompose the algae, they consume freshwater dissolved oxygen. Depletion of dissolved oxygen suffocates fish and impacts the freshwater ecosystem. Fish species and reproduction are severely reduced by seasonal depletion of oxygen. And if you've fished southern Green Bay in the summer, you'll know that the only thing you can primarily catch is a drum. Again, species are really impacted by that dissolved oxygen depletion. Next slide, please. So why phosphorus? Well, phosphorus is known as the devil's element. Phosphorus is the nutrient driving algal blooms, as seen through the whole lake experiment on the right. You can see that they divided this lake into two components. The bottom lake was fertilized with carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. The top lake, part of the lake, fertilized with carbon and nitrogen. There was a big algal bloom in that bottom portion. And agricultural runoff, as seen on the bar graph on the left, from fertilized agricultural fields is the main source of phosphorus to Lake Michigan. So farmers will apply manure, other fertilizers to their fields, and that exposed soil during the year will wash off the landscape and then be transported to tributaries and rivers within Lake Michigan. Next slide, please. So our study is to look at reactive filter media, and this is a treatment technology that can be used to remove phosphorus from agricultural runoff. Reactive media chemically remove dissolved phosphorus as runoff filters. And primarily, our group is focused on waste residuals. such as iron, calcium, and aluminum, to promote a circular economy. So on the left, that's iron filings. That was obtained by a company. But on the right is steel slag, which is a byproduct of recycling steel. And that steel slag was obtained by Charter Steel near Saukville, Wisconsin. So a lot of these residuals that we're using would otherwise be landfilled, or they're used as aggregates. So very low costing materials, but they have metals, iron, calcium, aluminum, which will remove some of that phosphorus. Next slide, please. So here's an illustration of some of those chemical mechanisms removing phosphorus. This includes ligand exchange with iron, or precipitation with calcium. So on the top, that's iron-rich media. So it's going to have a little bit different mechanism than the calcium on the bottom, which requires the calcium to be dissolved, and then it reacts with the dissolved phosphate to create calcium phosphate. So as the runoff moves through these filters, that dissolved phosphorus is going to be removed. Next slide, please. And initial reactive media trials have been plagued by concreting, and basically they'll solidify because there's a lot of particulate matter that is in runoff. So these reactive media are best used through a treatment train approach. So using a sediment bay, similar to a retention pond or detention pond, would reduce peak flows, but also remove suspended sediment, which would improve the efficiency of the reactive media. So again, without a sedimentation basin, these filter media systems have clogged. And currently there's 6 reactive filter full-scale systems in northeastern Wisconsin, and monitoring is ongoing. So this particular image is from our pilot agricultural runoff treatment site near Wrightstown, where we're taking in surface agricultural runoff and tile drainage from a field about 25 acres. And we have that sedimentation basin, and then we have a reactive media structure at the outlet. And this is being monitored by USGS and UW Green Bay. Next slide, please. So how was Freshwater Collaborative involved? Well, Freshwater Collaborative provided funding for the preliminary research on this reactive media, particularly as I was getting started as a professor. You know, it's really competitive to get large funding, and it's harder when you don't have any preliminary results. So the funds from Freshwater Collaborative were used to purchase supplies, and the experiment was incorporated in capstone class. So we had 2 semesters of a capstone class at UW Green Bay for environmental science majors, about 15 students each. And we investigated some preliminary media through batch testing, which is a lower cost way to evaluate filter media. Next slide. Oh, go back one.
Okay.
Too many slides. So the results from the capstone project, the 2 semesters, were published in the Journal of Conservation, and this includes 3 undergraduate students. And the accomplishments and experience by the students helped them land jobs within Wisconsin. A lot of the environmental engineers from UW Green Bay stay within the area, and they get skills such as water quality analysis using a discrete analyzer. So that's something that's used by wastewater treatment plants and industry, and that's a very specific instrument. So they all received training on that, but also experimental design and reporting results. Next slide, please. And so that initial funding helped us get preliminary results, which were incorporated into a proposal to the USDA. And we received that larger funding, so $750,000 from the USDA to develop the Agriculture Runoff Research and Education Center. So this includes that pilot system near Wrightstown. The received funding provided resources for graduate research assistantships, equipment, and supplies, and enabled some of the other projects that we're hearing from the Freshwater Collaborative. So the undergraduate student experience, the high school experience, we were able to take in additional students that were working underneath graduate students and undergraduate researchers in my lab to provide more experiences. So this funding has been used for training quite a bit. And then results from the study will advance the science and understanding of engineering wetlands and design novel nutrient recovery systems for the sustainable intensification of agriculture. So that's a brief but short take on how the Freshwater Collaborative not only provided seed funding, but provided numerous student experiences.
Do we have any questions? Okay.
Actually, several. How effective is the those two media that they use to sort the phosphorus on?
How
effective is that method?
How effective is the method with the two media? I don't know if you can hear them, Mike, or not. So
Oh yeah, I can hear them. So there are numerous media. They include steel slag. So steel slag depends on the retention time. That means how long the water is in contact with the media itself. So that removal rate is going to be variable depending on what the system. For 10-minute retention time, probably around 40 to 50%. But there is engineered media that can remove phosphorus within 1 minute. And right now it's a product called activated alumina. And so this is a high surface area, it's a reactive alumina. It can remove phosphorus, 90% dissolved phosphorus within one media. And its lifespan is, well, we're still measuring that, the cumulative P removal. But, it's a lot longer than the other types of media.
Then how does that compare with the pilot plant that you're working on? You're the thing in Wrightstown.
Yeah, so that's that project. We're still monitoring media. So when we look at scaling it up, we're still looking at that data, but I'm happy to present that in the future. But we're seeing encouraging results with removal.
okay, we had a question over here.
What is your design or implementation of backwashing of these filters? And what are you going to do with that backwash?
Yeah, so if there's a sedimentation basin prior, we're hoping that we won't have to backwash that often and that we would just be able to remove and replace the media after a certain period of time. I have thought about backwashing these systems, but I really want these to be passive and low maintenance for farmers to incorporate. If we're talking about power and pumping, that gets pretty expensive. I forgot I had one last slide, Marissa. Can you move to the next slide?
Yep.
So we had some impact to students in UW Extension did an evaluation of the project, and these quotes are pretty awesome. This report just came out. So this is a part of the Agriculture Runoff Treatment and Research Center, and it's just these student responses are really cool. So before this, I just loved the environment, but now I feel I have a lot more to say. I love working with water. I know the future. I want a job that's pretty similar to this. So again, we had probably 10 to 12 students in the lab since the beginning of this experience. And this summer was really active because we had 2 high school students, 2 or 3 undergraduate from across the Midwest, and then we had I had 2 and 3 UW Green Bay students and two master's students and a postdoc. So it was a really exciting time to be in the lab.
One more
Just
question.
to link
Okay.
these two projects, the high school students that we're talking about, those are the two that Mike had. These two freshwater collaborative projects are linked. Our high school students went to his lab and were part of this really productive research.
Cool. Okay, we have one more question in the back.
Yes, are there any plans for either an on-site or virtual tour of, say, the Wrightstown facility or project?
Yeah, that's part of this project is some outreach. I'm hoping to have a field day in the future. Something that we're going to plan hopefully this summer. But yeah, stay tuned.
Okay, thanks. We're gonna move forward. Looking, did I miss anybody? We're gonna move forward and hear from Joe Mondlock. He's an associate professor of chemistry at UW Stevens Point.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Munlock. As Marissa said, I'm a professor in chemistry at University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. I wanted to just, before we get started, thank the Freshwater Collaborative for this funding, where we sort of are developing a collaborative undergraduate research experience to start thinking about tackling PFAS in Wisconsin. Marissa, if you want to go to the next slide. Okay, so a little bit of chemistry speak here. PFAS, you might have heard of them as forever chemicals. These are technically they're per or polyfluoroalkyl species. I have some examples of PFAS molecules on the upper right in the screen. And so what all of these molecules have in common is that each one of them has at least one carbon atom that we would say is fully fluorinated. So it has either 2 or 3 fluorine atoms attached to it. Okay, and the carbon-fluorine bond in PFAS is really what makes it do what people liked to use it for. Okay, so it turns out that it's a really strong bond. Those atoms are held together very strongly. It makes them thermally robust. It makes them repel water. It makes them repel grease. And so industry found lots of uses for these molecules. Okay, and those exact same properties keep them from breaking down in the environment. And so they're environmentally persistent. Okay. And unfortunately, we've found in some instances that some of these molecules can cause some adverse health effects. I have some of them listed in the lower right, and the link to that can be found under the middle bullet point. It's through CDC. Okay, and that has led in April of this year, the EPA to announce its national primary drinking water regulation for 6 PFAS molecules. And those are the ones that I have shown on the slide in the bigger box. Okay, and so it turns out that Wisconsin was a little bit ahead of the EPA in terms of regulation. So we've been regulating 2 of those particular PFAS molecules, the ones highlighted in the blue box, for some time now. And so we're doing pretty decent in the state, and it'll take us a little bit of time, I'm sure, to get caught up and get those other 4 in our monitoring as well. If you can go to the next slide. Okay, it's not hard to see the impact that PFAS has had on Wisconsin. So researchers have found PFAS in surface and groundwater. We found it in soil and fish, just to name a few places. Okay, and that in turn has had definite impact on communities across Wisconsin. And so on the right of the slide, I just have a few news article headlines that have come out over the last few years, right? And so we've had to shut down city wells, right? And we've found PFAS molecules going into water bodies, maybe where we don't want them. And we've had to issue some fish consumption advisory. Okay, just in case anybody wants, I wasn't sure if these would be shared out publicly. If you're interested about PFAS being found in surface or groundwater, soil, fish, the little links in the lower left are the primary literature sources where those are found. Okay. And so our sort of idea to help solve this, if you could go to the next slide, Marissa. Back one more. Was to develop a collaborative undergraduate research experience between the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point and the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee. Okay, and so this brings together people in chemistry, chemical engineering, and geosciences. So my collaborator, Yin Wang and Shangping Yu at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee are in chemical engineering and geosciences. Okay, and our idea was to more rapidly develop, evaluate, and transfer PFAS absorption technology so that we could figure out a way to remove it from water. The image on the left is an image from this past summer. And so the two students that have white lab coats on, those are undergraduate students that work in our lab at UWSP. And as part of this grant that was funded by the Freshwater Collaborative, we had budgeted in there travel for a summer experience down to UW of Wisconsin-Milwaukee to learn and do PFAS related testing that we can't do at UWSP. And so students spent a week down there this summer working with, in this particular image, a graduate student to learn more about PFAS science. Okay, and so if we could go to the next slide. Okay, and so our particular technology to remove PFAS from water relies on the principle of adsorption. And so adsorption is just simply taking something from a liquid phase, so think about water, and adsorbing it onto the surface of a solid. Okay, so fundamentally, you can just think about this like a sponge. Okay, so we develop little sponges that are able to soak up PFAS from water, and the PFAS sticks to surfaces. Right, and adsorption is known to be a practical and economical approach to remove many pollutants, including PFAS, from water. Right. Our particular little sponges are called metal organic frameworks. And we like these because they have very high surface areas, so lots of places where PFAS molecules can stick to them, and they're readily modifiable. And so in our grant, what we are doing is making a library of these metal organic frameworks. And so I have just one shown, this kind of diamond-looking image in the upper right. Right. And the important thing from the perspective of PFAS removal is the yellow circles in there. And so the yellow circles represent areas where PFAS molecules can stick to our sponge. Okay. And because these things are readily modifiable, we've made, undergraduate students at UWSP have made a series of these metal organic frameworks. And so that's kind of highlighted in the image in the lower right. So there's the dark gray bar, the purple bar, and the gold bar. And those three bars are three unique metal organic framework materials. All right, and they went ahead and tested their ability to remove one PFAS, PFBS, from water. And so on the x-axis is the ability of those particular MOFs to remove that PFAS from water. And you can see that for each MOF, there's a different capacity. And so we're excited by this. It means that we're starting to develop our library and think about which MOFs will perform the best at removing PFAS from water. And we also need to expand it and start testing different PFAS versus these different MOFs. If you could go to the next slide. There's lots of benefits to students. So students are directly involved in planning and carrying out all of this research. So they are in the lab. They are the ones running the instruments. They are the ones making the metal organic frameworks. They're the ones testing for PFAS removal. Students really like this particular project. So they most often see it as, being able to work on a real world environmental problem. I do have a quote from one student that I just wanted to read. So she said that, PFAS research interests her because she has family in an area that had been previously affected by high levels of PFAS. And being able to work and learn about PFAS has allowed me to learn how these chemicals work. And so this project has been very attractive, getting students in the lab, developing their problem solving and hands-on technical skills. We also try to get them to tell their science stories. At events like Research in the Rotunda, they've presented the results. And then one other big thing that helps really be able to keep them in the lab and move the project forward is that within the grant, we have paid research opportunities. So over this last summer, we had 3 students working essentially full-time, usually between 36 and 40 hours a week in the lab for 10 weeks. And then also during the semester, the school year, we're able to pay 3 to 6 students to work. Usually they can only work about 3 to 5 hours a week with their school schedules. Okay. If we can go forward, I think there's also some good benefits to Wisconsin, and I think a lot of these things have been said already. But I think our sort of primary benefits, right, are improved water quality, definitely workforce development, and then increased retention rates at universities. We know that undergraduate research helps us keep students at the university so that we can continue to train them, get those hands-on skills so that they can get out into the workforce and actually work on these problems. Okay. So I think I'll stop there and leave time for questions.
More chemistry questions.
Yes.
Are those metal organic frameworks commercially available, or did you make them from scratch?
So the answer is both. They are commercially available, but we make them all in-house. So the students are the ones making them, characterizing them, and testing them.
You modify, say, one part of the MOF in the lab, I take it, from the commercially available. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So we modify one small component. Metal organic frameworks are built up of metals and organic molecules. That's why the name is what it is. And we can readily change out those components so that we can tailor and engineer the pore sizes, the pore functionality, whether they like to absorb water or repel water, etc.
That's the next question. I was going to say those different modifications are the pore size, correct?
They can be the pore size. In the little graph that I had, the pore size changes very little. And so the way that this is working is it's doing ion exchange. So the PFAS, a lot of PFAS molecules when they're in water are anionic. And there's a component in the MOF that is also anionic. And so those two things change, a negative charge for a negative charge. And so we're changing out the negative charge on the framework so that it influences how much PFAS is absorbed.
And one last question, and that is, when you analyze this, are you using LC mass spec to determine how much you've collected?
Yeah, so that's a good question. At UWSP, we are largely using nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. And so one of the reasons for that is it's because it's something we have on hand. But that does limit the sort of limit of detection that we can for PFAS. So when we're at UWSP, we're looking at higher concentrations of PFAS than you'd find in the environment. And that's one of the big reasons why we partnered with UW Milwaukee. So they have the LC-MS instrumentation so that we can also look at these at environmentally relevant concentrations. And then as part of this, we are also planning to see if our systems work on some real world samples, particularly from private wells across the state, to make sure that they work in those situations as well.
Thanks. We have another question at the top.
Yeah, could you explain exactly how many different PFAS there are? I know there's, I just want everybody to know, that, you're doing research on, it looks like just a few that hopefully are ones that are most environmentally detrimental to human beings specifically. I lived a long time. I know there's a lot of different ones, and I've heard in the thousands. And is your research catching all of these, or are they just catching 1, 2, 3, or 4?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a hard question to answer. So the number of PFAS that you will see quoted varies widely, and that's largely or in part because the definition used to define a PFAS can vary as well. So there's probably in the order of tens of thousands of different PFAS molecules. The ones that we focused on in this particular project are the ones that the EPA set forth. So those 6 PFAS molecules on one of those first slides. And so those are the ones that are that in many instances have the health-related instances that have been well documented. And so that's why the EPA is interested in them. You can think about PFAS molecules as classes of molecules that have different, what we call functional groups in chemistry. So there's lots of them that have carboxylic acids and sulfonates, and they are similar to the ones that we're studying. But the direct answer is no, we're not testing all of them. That would be difficult. The hope is that if we can understand some of them, that it would apply to all of them. One interesting thing about metal organic frameworks is because of their high variability, we can think about tuning them. So, for example, if we only wanted to catch small PFAS molecules. So one challenge in PFAS science is getting the small PFAS molecules to stick to these sponges. If we only wanted to catch the small ones and leave the big ones behind, maybe for a different sponge, we could engineer the pore size so that it could do that. And so that's one of the reasons we like these materials, is because we can change them and hopefully influence what PFAS molecules stick to them.
Yes, one more question.
Practical applications of research like this considered when you're doing the research? For instance, if these sponges work, then is it envisioned how it would actually be used to clean water?
Yeah, so I didn't show the sort of macroscopic image, but you can think of, I mean, these materials look a lot like, say, activated carbon or a charcoal filter, like a Brita pitcher filter that you would have. And so there's engineering strategies to incorporate those into filter media that you can hook directly into a water line in many different instances. You know, it could be at a pitcher level or at a house filter level. Activated carbon is a material, a filter media that's used even in some instances in water treatment plants to help remove PFAS. So it would be very similar to that.
Yes.
Yes, is Stevens Point developing any plans for long-term storage of captured PFAS chemicals?
No, good question. Yeah, so getting rid of PFAS, right, is still a challenge. And so, you know, we work with our EHS lab to make sure that we dispose of them in the proper way. So we have a company that comes in and takes them and disposes of them. But yeah, we don't have any, I don't think, desire to try to find ways to store lots of PFAS on our campus or anything like that.
I guess a follow-up, the company that picks them up, do you know what's happening then to the PFAS? What is the plan for those?
I did at one point in time, can I remember, when we first started, I reached out to kind of identify what they do with them and where they go. So the most common thing they do with them, and I'm pretty sure what they do with them, is just incinerate them. And so the past few years, the Department of Defense has, and subsequently the EPA has put forth regulations for properly incinerating PFAS. And so there's ways that they can do this to ensure that when they burn them under certain conditions, that they don't, for example, go up into the atmosphere and spread out in the environment further. And so in order to incinerate them, you have to monitor essentially your combustion stack for PFAS emissions.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. We're going to go ahead and next we'll hear from Lao Dong Guo, professor at the School of Freshwater Sciences at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
Yes, could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so my name is Lao Dong Guo, professor in School of Freshwater Sciences at UWM. And today I'm going to talk about the microplastic project funded by Freshwater Collaborative. and thank you for inviting me. Sorry, I forgot to add a few slides. Was planning to attend in person, so I mean, this is a collaborative project between Madison campus and UW Milwaukee. And in 2020, we was funded in 2020. So my co-PI, Joe Peterson, he left medicine. So we have to adjust the research project a little bit. So of course, these are based on my expertise and the available instruments in Milwaukee. Although this project was mostly designed to train students, undergraduate students and high school students. We also have a few undergraduate students join our lab in the past years to do, because it looks like microplastic is one of the pressing emerging contaminants. So we get a lot of questions from the high school teachers and students, science fair topic. Anyway, the goal of our project was to, of course, first is kind of training student, provide hands-on research experience, and specifically our research is on microplastic and nanoplastic. So we focus on the aging or weathering processes of microplastic. So we also conduct, for example, including face masks, microfibers. One of the, right now they are the most prevalent plastic pollution in the world. So they are kind of everywhere because these microfibers are everywhere. The clothes we wear and a lot of commercial products like a fishing net or something. That's why they could even find in the bottom of the ocean, ocean deep sediment, off Peru, 6,000 meters, there, plenty of microfibers. And of course, we are kind of focusing and try to understand what kind of weathering products once these microplastic are in the water. So what kind of degradation pathways? So we utilize different kind of leaching, for example, water soluble, thermal leaching, and under UV irradiation, just to see how much of the weathering products they could release in terms of dissolved organic material. And we also characterize their chemical properties and compare to those natural organic material to see the differences between weathering products from microplastic and those natural organic material in, for example, in river, in lake water. We also insist in understanding the environmental effect or photochemical reactivities of these dissolved organic material released from microplastic and microfibers. And of course, what kind of ecological or environmental role these plastic derived DOM may play in the water environment. So in terms of why this project is, or this research is important, and we know microplastic are everywhere. So, but where they go once they are in the aquatic environment, for example, because microplastic, we have primary sources. Those are already manufactured by industrial or commercial products. And the other sources is from secondary processes called secondary microplastic, because these plastic debris, once they are in the environment, they will be breaking down through, fragmentation, degradation, release secondary microplastic and nanoplastic. So our project is kind of focused on these kind of invisible, because we couldn't really see nanoplastic and their weathering products. and you couldn't really isolate these like degradation products or wayloading products in natural environment. So the way we do this is to use control laboratory experiment and try to understand the production pathways and mechanism of nanoplastic, because nanoplastic has been shown to be more toxic or hazardous than microplastic, and they could penetrate biological memory and become like part of fish tissue, or even through bioaccumulation, maybe in human body as well. So of course, freshwater collaborative is kind of enhanced collaboration. So we have to have kind of at least 2 campus join this. And also, I mean, the other important is to foster student training. So we use this opportunity and of course, leverage the support for undergraduate research fellow at UWM. So we actually have maybe close to 1,000 of undergraduate students involved in our like either summer research or regular like a semester like research. And just I mentioned, I mean, in addition to regular undergraduate students, we also have like several like high school students trained in or working in my laboratory mostly during summer, and some is kind of provided like laboratory opportunity for them to produce data in their science fair poster. For undergraduate students, we have actually like 2 undergraduate students was able to attend the annual National Undergraduate Research Symposium, using like data provided during their internship. And locally, one undergraduate student, Sean Gibbs, he also received the Best Poster Award from UWM annual like undergraduate research symposium. Our project also provide opportunity for like PSM students in the School of Freshwater Sciences at UWM. These professional master, they need internship opportunity. So one of our PSM student, Mitch Schultz, he actually worked in my lab for 1 year. Of course, it's part-time. He also had a job, but he was able to use his data to publish a peer-reviewed paper in one of the top-rated environmental science journals. Overall, this student training opportunity has stimulated and motivated, especially these undergraduate students, to engage in environmental research at UWM, and encourage them to consider career in science, chemistry, and other STEAM fields, and of course, increase student retention, because these students actually working in my lab, they all become, I mean, are mostly good students anyway.
Wonderful.
The other point in terms of work benefit is kind of course, we provide a lot of like opportunity for student training from high school undergraduate to PSM student. We also provide a lot of outreach opportunity through like we collaborated with also plastic free Milwaukee and several organizations nearby our campus. We did participate many outreach opportunities, open laboratory, present to citizens on plastic contamination. Based on this project, we was able to produce some preliminary data to develop several research proposals. And one of them was funded by National Science Foundation for $360,000 to continue our microplastic research. So I will stop here to see if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions about nano and microplastics? Yes.
Are you able to trace backwards the source of some of the plastics? Like, I do litter pickup in a local park. I've got an issue with grocery bags, certain straws from certain fast food chains and plastic cups, etc. Are you able to trace those backwards to their source?
I hear most some of it. I don't think so. Tracking source is kind of somewhat challenging. For example, I mean, a lot of microplastic research is kind of to identify, okay, the specific polymers, the kind polymer and shape, and is kind of, or of course, those could be linked to the sources. But my research is kind of focused mostly on the invisible part. So all the, the weathering in the, this related to the food sources or something like that. And of course, this should be relatively easy compared with like other natural samples because you could digest food using, for example, potassium hydroxide or so remove all the natural organic material. And if there are any like plastic left, though, we could use either Raman spectroscopy or pyrolysis GCMS to identify the specific polymers or functional group. Yeah, so we should be able to identify that. But that's not my like research focus. I'm not sure if I answered your question. Sorry.
You did. Yeah, she was nodding. So thank you so, so much. Okay, we're going to move on to Sharon Moen from the University of Wisconsin Sea Grant Program.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for sticking around for the presentation, and really thank you for the inviting all of us here, Senator Cowles and Representative Kitchens. It's a pleasure to be able to speak with you today. And most importantly, thank you to everybody who's supporting the Wisconsin idea that we can move what we learn in the university beyond the ivory towers and really help people across the state. So next slide. I'm involved in a workforce development project with my collaborators, Don Fang Deng and Emma Hauser, and both of them are sorry they can't be here today. Don Fang is at an international conference presenting about the fish feed development projects that she does in her lab in Milwaukee. And Emma Hauser is leading a tour as we speak of high schoolers around the University Stevens Point's Northern Aquaculture Demonstration Facility up there in Red Cliff. So anyway, what we're doing is we're providing educational opportunities for K through 12 students across the state and also for college undergraduates and graduate students in a variety of different programs. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. What our goals are in this 2-year project we're doing is to gather information about aquaponic and aquaculture training programs across the state, develop an outreach and recruitment strategy for aquaculture. We're conducting outreach, education, and recruitment in schools and at public events for aquaculture careers and blue careers in general. And then we're providing and supporting aquaculture training opportunities for young adults. And so I developed this map. The numbers you see on each of the counties, just wait, I'm going to cough, represent the number of aquaculture licenses that were given out by the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection in 2024. And the stars are where Don Fang is located down there in Milwaukee, Emma up there in the Bayfield Peninsula with right there in the Possum Islands. And though my main campus is University of Wisconsin-Madison, I live or work out of the Superior office, at the field office up there in Superior. So the 2 yellow stars are like Stevens Point and Madison, but the blue stars are where this collaborative project is operating. The fish are some of the partners that we've developed, both business and other universities. that we're working with to develop some of the training programs and sending kids out to the farms. Next slide. Now, I like to play this game with people. It's like, what's in this barn? I'll give you a second to think about it. I'll give you a hint. It's not cows anymore. It used to be. Okay, next slide. So Mike Habel is in this barn, and he's in this barn raising Pacific gray lag shrimp. This farm has been in his family for over 150 years. And as you can see, he's kind of getting older. He's over 70, and he couldn't keep the cows anymore. And so he was like wondering what to do with this property, and he decided to start raising shrimp. Next slide. So this question is, what's in this barn? And this is kind of a trick question because you see in the background there is cows. And so cows are in that barn, but next slide. But what's also on this property, it's an Amish farm, and they're raising thousands of yellow perch fingerlings. And I asked them why they started raising yellow perch. And they pointed at the cows and they said, we're raising the perch to feed the cows. And that's because of the collapse of kind of the dairy industry in Wisconsin, well, across the United States, but it's particularly hit Wisconsin hard. Since 2017, Wisconsin lost nearly 10% of its farms, and 30% of those were the dairy farms. It's just been hard to keep the cows. They're expensive. The bottom fell out of the market. So a lot of farmers are turning to raising fish, but they don't know how, and they're aging out, and they suggested they needed help during a needs assessment we conducted. Next slide. Oh, if you can go back one, I'm just going to point out Emma's there in that picture with 3 of our interns to her left. So that's Emma, the Amish folks, and then our 3 interns. Next. So we did a needs assessment leading into our 2-year Freshwater Collaborative project, which started just last year. And the top needs of the industry, and this is the food fish producers of Wisconsin, was the public perception of my products, but tied for second was the physical help now. They have workforce challenges. Next slide. And then we asked, how can the university help you? But the number 1 answer was applied research on specific aquaculture topics. So I think that's exciting to know that, you know, the industry knows that the university is there to help solve some technical issues that maybe perhaps they can't solve without the help of experiments like the ones that you've heard earlier today. But the second thing they thought the university could help with was training the next generation of fish growers, fish processors, and fisheries regulators, which was really interesting too. And both what are your needs and how can the university help has led us to this moment today where I'm talking about our project and what we've done. Next. Yes, okay, so our project started in 2020. Well, is just over a year old. So in 2024, we offered work experiences for undergraduates and graduates. And like many of my other colleagues here today, that few high schoolers snuck into our program too. But in Milwaukee, Don Fang has taken on a multitude of undergraduate students and a couple high schoolers to have them working in our lab. And up in University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, I'm going to say NADF, that is the acronym for the Northern Aquaculture Demonstration Facility. Interns have been raising Arctic char and Atlantic salmon, along with Emma and her colleagues there. And so the guy in the middle, I'll read you a quote from him about his summer experience this last year. He said, learning and gaining experience working in our intensive walleye larval culture setup has been incredible. The expertise and knowledge of our staff make every moment a valuable learning opportunity. Every day presents a new challenge that pushes me to improve my problem-solving skills and expand my understanding of the principles we apply in the facility. I have also enjoyed learning the ins and outs of the process that go into our research projects with our walleye and Atlantic salmon. From experimental design to data collection and analysis, it has been incredible to observe the detail and precision involved in our projects from start to finish. You can see on the left there there's some outreach going on. It was during Harbor Fest there in Milwaukee, and Don Feng had her students talking with the public about the research they do and explaining some of the parts of the yellow perch they're raising. So there's both outreach and research that go on in our work experiences program. Next. Okay, so for the K-12 education component of our project, we're trying to put more fish in schools, and we're doing this through outreach and also encouraging schools to participate in the Aquaculture Challenge, which is a 4-part challenge. It just opened up, October 31st, opened up for registration yesterday. Wisconsin schools have won twice. And it's open to great schools throughout the Great Lakes. So it's pretty exciting that our students, our student teams are doing so well. We're offering mini grants to help teams get started. And so one of the recipients for mini grants was from Superior Middle School. And they earn project support that will engage about 300 eighth graders each year. And so the teacher wrote, establishing an aquaponics system in our common work area, shared by 3 science teachers, will serve as a dynamic, hands-on educational resource, aligning with academic standards and with the principles of sustainability and place-based education. The project will include construction and maintenance of the system, with students involved in each step. This hands-on approach will reinforce their understanding of ecological cycles and the interdependence of organisms within ecosystems. It will also serve as a reference point for our exploration of developing strategies to combat ecological challenges. And so finding our teachers through going to public events, including Harbor Fest and Lake Superior Days, and also to some of the places where the teachers congregate, like the Wisconsin Society of Science Teachers and the 4-H conference annually in Wisconsin. We're also working with farmers, and next summer we'll be sending out interns to work on some of the farms and to help learn on the ground skills. And it'll be a combination of working in the laboratories with Don Feng and Emma, and then going out to the farms. And so we have 5 farms who wrote letters of support and are interested. We're also working with the Wisconsin Aquaculture Association. So now we have what's in this barn as our last question. And if you guessed lake trout, you are, oh, no, sorry, rainbow trout. Next slide, yes. You are correct. So this young lady is raising rainbow trout in the barn and learned by herself. It's very rural, very impoverished part of the Wisconsin. And she was one of the ones who kind of inspired this project too. She's like, I just would love to learn more, but I don't know where to find information. And so if we can encourage young people to come and seek information from the university and then send it back out into the communities, I think we're really doing our job. And so I want to thank you for your time and thank you for your support of the Freshwater Collaborative.
All right, opening the question. Yes.
Aquaponics is not a closed system. Is it the waste being used for fertilization of aqua?
And Sharon, if you can't hear the question, just tell me and I can repeat.
Yeah, I couldn't quite hear the question. Could you repeat that?
The question is aquaponics a closed system and recycles the waste or not?
In general, yes. All the aquaponic systems I have seen do recycle the water through the plants, and then the water from the plants goes back into the fish tanks.
That system that you have in your research?
Is that a system that you have in your research?
Yes. Well, I'm the one who has the little aquaponics tank. Both Emma and Don Feng, they work in laboratories that do recirculating aquaculture, but they do not do aquaponics. But we are working with a farmer, Lake Orchard Aquaponics, who has a closed system, and they raise greens as well as as tilapia. You might have heard of Superior Fresh, which was our largest aquaponics facility in the world. They just shut down their greenhouse though, so I can't say they're doing aquaponics anymore. But they had a closed system also, and whatever extra water they had, they were doing regenerative farming with that on their property there in Hickston.
My understanding is Superior Fresh gives sells their lettuce to all the Quick Trips in Wisconsin.
They did, but like I said, they shut down their greenhouse in the spring of 2024. So it's a rather new development. So they're fully focused on raising the Atlantic salmon now.
There's one of my first calls was with them early on when we were starting the Freshwater Collaborative. And they said, we don't want to give you insider trading advice, but if you invest in a growing industry, invest in aquaponics and aquaculture, because our fish consumption is increasing and our natural fish availability in the oceans is decreasing. So the best we're doing is raising it, and the universities of Wisconsin feed those industries across Wisconsin, as Sharon just described. And that conversation is stuck in my head quite vividly. I did not make an investment, but sometimes I wonder if I should have. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Sure,
okay. Our next, thank you so much for being so patient. We're only, a bunch of minutes running late. So this is Keith Wahanowski, Professor of Applied Mathematics at the University of Wisconsin Stout, and Charles Wachmuth, Vice President of Chippewa Valley Bean. I'm going to hand this to you.
Okay.
Right.
And that is. It was a 3.5-hour drive to come. We came all the way over from Dunn County, Wisconsin. And
we're grateful.
Well, thank you. It was a long, wet drive last night, but we're happy to be here. This is everything we've heard talked about today has been very impressive.
Yeah. So they can hear you online.
Sure. Oh.
Okay.
I don't know if I need a microphone.
I think so, more than you think. Yes.
Okay.
Online, think online.
So what the Freshwater Collaborative does is so very, very important. And we've heard how it affects school kids and training and everything else, and how it impacts agriculture and aquaculture. And just before Keith goes into it, this is his project. I am just an industry partner. But my family settled in Wisconsin and Dunn County in 1858. I'm the 8th generation on our family farm. I'm the 3rd generation in the dark red kidney bean industry. And while we may be the largest in North America when it comes to dark red kidney beans, we're nothing compared to things like soy or corn or anything like that. So the research that these professors and Dr. Wojciechowski is doing is critical for the expansion of specialty crops. And Wisconsin is known for specialty crops: kidney beans, ginseng, cranberries, fresh produce. So that is why I made the 3.5-hour drive to support stuff like this. I'll shut up.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And also, I should point out, our project, our collaboration is also representative of what we think is one of the biggest benefits of this project. And that is, here we have an 8th generation farmer, right? And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm a city boy from Chicago. I'm, so close to Green Bay right now, I understand, hostile territory. But I would have never, I had very little, the wildlife I was exposed to was squirrels and trees. And now I have this touch point, and I've been involved with agriculture. And so when you think of agriculture, you often don't think of mathematics, computer science, and statistics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. I mean, you might think of those things in terms of like tractors and the seed drills and the major equipment, but you don't think about it typically in terms of crop science and agricultural water management. This you're going to see in this project, we're bringing all these things together, just like it brought Charles and I together. And also, we often don't think of UW Stout as an ag school. And I know when this project was first introduced to Charles, and you were.
I was visiting some growers in the Central Sanders Waisaki's there, a large potato group. And I said, we're looking at the water needs of kidney beans in Wisconsin. And they're like, who are you doing it? I'm like, UW Stout. And they said, Stout's not an ag school. I said, well, this is a math problem.
Yeah, and so one of the great benefits for us with Freshwater Collaborative has been, to point out that like all the EW schools own these problems. We are collaborative and we are, not any one school, has a claim on ag problems or agricultural water problems. We all do. Now that I have that laid the groundwork for that, I'm gonna come back to this slide. This is actually a great time. So I'm a mathematician, but you're not gonna see any equations today. I'm gonna spare you that. The only math you're gonna see, it's like that little graphic right there. That's it. Okay, so that's all I'm gonna show as far as math goes. But this problem just started as a math problem. I approached Charles, and he put me in a meeting with his agronomists. And we talked about many problems, but one of the ones that was brought to our attention was how much water does it take to grow 100 weight of kidney beans? And so I thought about that one, and really what we're going to do is we're not going to answer that question specifically, but we're going to think about the relationship between water and crop yield. And so we developed a mathematical model that's just a set of equations that we have 3 equations. One equation has focuses on the plant growth. Another equation focuses on the water availability. And the third equation, of course, is linked to the other 2, and that's going to produce the yield. So now that we spent the summer, we got some initial seed funding from Freshwater Collaborative, and we had a couple students develop that mathematical model. And in this graphic, that's this part. Okay, so there's no start or end graphic here. So we started here with the mathematical model. And then once we had the model, we needed to calibrate the model so that we can use it for predictive analysis. And so then we got some more funding from the Freshwater Collaborative, and we were able to bring in some computer scientists, and we built these weather stations. And we talked with Chippewa Valley Bean, Charles connected us with Dome Family Farms, and they let us put 5 of these weather stations out in their fields. And we collected data so we can calibrate the model. We built those stations, so we hired 6 students over the course of this project, and 2 of them helped build the stations. And so now, once we have the stations in place, we get the data. It goes up to, there's a little wireless system up there, goes into a database, and then we collect the data. And this is project's ongoing, so we don't have like results other than to show you the equations, which we don't want to see right now. We're analyzing the data right now, and we will be ongoing throughout the rest of the year on this project as we start to build the models for predicting crop yield. So now let me take you back to this slide, because this is really where the fun happens. This project is important because, one, it fills a gap in what Charles was talking about regarding we have a specialty crop, and there's not a lot of research that's done on dark red kidney beans. The second reason this is important is farmers need to know how to more efficiently use their water resources. It's an increasingly competitive resource with municipalities, so they need to become more efficient. And third, it develops the technical talent that our students who typically don't have this touch point to agriculture, our computer science and applied math students, they typically wouldn't work with an agricultural problem. And this is putting them in contact with them and raising their level of awareness. So let me just point out now. So I have some students here. So right down here, we have Audrey and Anna. They started the project. They're working with Ben. It's Ben from Chippewa Valley Bean, Ben Royce. And Audrey here, she's our own, well, actually, Audrey and Noah are 2 graduates. Audrey now is working as a solutions analyst. Let me see. Yes, a solutions analyst at Marshfield Clinic. In this project, she credits her ability to do the data science and the Python programming. Python's a programming language, not the snake. That skill was what got her the job. Anna, likewise, she was one of our younger students at the time. She's getting ready to graduate. She captured 2 internships, one at Marshfield Clinic and another one at United Health Group. And she credits this project as another one that gave her the skills to capture those two internships. Also, when students work on these projects and they show up to the interviews, they're not just talking about the courses they took. They get to talk about the project, and it really amplifies and heightens their, what they can do at the interview. But the companies become very interested that they have something to talk about other than what classes they took in their GPA. Noah is a Stout grad, and here he is at Research in a Rotunda doing a poster presentation. And Noah is currently a graduate student in applied mathematics and data science. He also captured an internship after our project with the Air Force Institute of Technology. And then he went on to graduate school. And then this is Lindsay Redepenning, and she's my current student. And that's Lindsay out in the field. You don't think of a mathematician out there in the field using power tools, using drills and augers and putting, these posts into the ground. But Lindsay had that experience. She also got a lot of bugs in her hair. That was annoying and exciting. Yeah.
Odd for a computer scientist.
Odd for a computer scientist. Yeah, very much so. But that was an experience that Lindsay would have never thought that she was going to have. And so now Lindsay, she just recently got an internship, and she mentioned that, she gets to talk about this project, and she's out there, she's rewiring a system. She is, doing all the data analysis. And then she goes back to collecting the data, then she goes back to the office, and she has to do all the, numerical experiments and all the coding that goes along with this. So, it's this multifaceted project. And she's really, developed like an immense amount of skills, more than just, working with the equations and doing the programming. But she's just out there in the field. She has to deal with, web development, collecting the data, web scraping, getting out there in the field, using the power tools, like I said, and having that entire experience. So I'm going to turn it over to Charles to close up.
Thank you, Keith. So as we look at this as an external partner, what did Chippewa Valley Green actually do? We provided access to fields. We provided access to ideas. We provided interest to create more agricultural thinking, computer scientists and stuff like that. Because as Keith mentioned it before, people don't know where their food comes from. And this will help people understand where their food comes from. If you can take a computer scientist from Milwaukee and get them interested in precision ag, it affects our state across the board. And I look at what we've done as Chippewa Valley and any support we can give to any projects, Freshwater Collaborative, anything along the state university system, we are there to do it. This is an engine for growth. It's an engine for students, and it's an engine for employment in the state. Strictly speaking, you may say, what's the big deal about kidney beans? Well, if we look at the grand scheme of things, water resources are different. Wets are wetter, dries are drier. But if we know what it takes to grow kidney beans where in the state, we can make our agricultural system more efficient. And that's what we need, is we need more efficient food. And as we come into chili season, which I hope everybody buys, they're very sustainable. They don't take as much water as many other things. They're very healthy, micronutrients, fibers, proteins. So how can we make the state of Wisconsin even better at providing the food we need for the future? So with that, I'll say, are there any questions? Did we just do that well?
Yeah, this is very typical for a math talk. Oh, we actually heard that one.
Okay.
How much water take for 100?
That's the one word. Actually, it doesn't take a lot. There's a lot of drainage in the, fortunately with kidney beans, they like a lot of drainage. They don't like the water. They have a very shallow root system, and they don't like a lot of water sitting there. So this past season didn't take any irrigation. Actually, we had plenty of rain over the summer. And so, like, I don't have a gallons of water answer for you yet. But we will soon. And hopefully we can get more funding to keep this project going and build more data centers. That would be another. There's so much overlap in the benefits. When I was looking at this is like a seed fund for, we have opportunities for like a WISIS grant. even expand out there. But I'll turn it over to Charles. Yeah.
On average, they say it takes about 96 gallons of water to produce a pound of pulses. So that's peas, beans, lentils, and chickpeas. For example, to produce a pound of grade A prime beef takes on average 1,800 gallons.
100 versus 80.
So I have a question just about on the results of this study. Would can you develop genetically a more drought-resistant kidney bean plant?
So beans, peas, beans, lentils, chickpeas are very naturally resistant to drought. Genetically, we as an industry, now we're getting in the weeds, we don't want any genetic modification.
Okay, that's fine.
So, but that said, by using Mendel's old techniques, we do try and breed.
Okay.
By selective breeding, but there's no genetically modified.
What I meant was, suppose you find out that it's 80 gallons of water to do this. Is that still sustainable? Or if you modify through your Mendelian science, that you get something that only requires 40 gallons?
Well, not in kidney beans. So what you're gonna do there is you're gonna say, I can't grow a kidney bean, I'm gonna grow a chickpea.
Okay.
No, but what we will know is the soil type. And so that's where we might be able to attack that problem, is we can change the soil type that the plant's growing.
I'm just curious. It's a very interesting project.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
Yep, better turn it.
Oh, there it is. Thank you so much. And it's worth noting that the last time our team spoke with
Number 1 or number 2?
spoke with Charles from Chippewa Bean, he told us that he and his colleagues go to agricultural conferences all around the world. And the example you gave us was Paris, France, and how he talks about this collaborative project with UW Stout, with Freshwater Collaborative in Paris, saying, we know exactly how many gallons of water or liters of water, we're trying to find that out. And they say, wow, that's really important in Europe where we have limited amounts of water, and the Middle East and other parts of the globe. So to think that Wisconsin is on the global map for kidney beans is something that's really exciting. So as you can see, we engage with stakeholders all over Wisconsin. We group them into 7 main groups, but we really heard from quite a few of these and how we engage collaboratively. Thank you so much for your patience. We focus on 9 major industries. You heard from a handful of them, and with respect to your time, we're just going to zip right through. This is a growing list of more than 200 partners that the Freshwater Collaborative has. And this is actually an old list. It's not meant to be read from where you're sitting, but it's just growing. Chippewa Valley Bean is on there among, Interfluve and all the other partners we talked about today. As a last hurrah, we want to thank our 13 UW universities for contributing to today's presentation, to the Freshwater Collaborative, and of course, the University of Wisconsin. We wouldn't be here without them. And if you're interested in learning more or hearing more from our professors, our faculty, our staff, our students, our collaborators, please, by all means, visit our website, freshwater.wisconsin.edu. Send us an email, freshwater-collab@uwm.edu, and sign up for our digital newsletter. We send out a quarterly newsletter bragging about everything you just heard about. And thank you so much, Senator Coles and Representative Kitchens, for hosting this today. It's really been a pleasure.
Okay, thank you. First off, thanks to all of you for being here today, as well as the people that are watching on Zoom. And really thank you to the presenters that came, Marissa and the rest of them. I think they really showed us the value of the Freshwater Collaborative, and I think you justified our investment as a legislature in that. A couple other people to thank: Evan Miller from Senator Cole's office, and my staff were back in Madison running the computer, Marco Lopez. Thanks to Crossroads for allowing us to do this, and Mark Holey as well. One other thing I'd like to point out, though, before we leave today: Senator Coles is retiring this year after 40 years. For the past 40 years, he has been the leader on environmental issues in the legislature. If you go way back, he led the charge on controlling sea lampreys and the Great Lakes Collaborative. He led that. The testing on the Fox River for PCBs that allowed the federal government to come in and clean that up. And then in recent years, the work we've done on, on the groundwater and surface water, as well as he's been a leader on PFAS. So I think we should all really thank Senator Coles. He's really made a difference environmentally in Wisconsin. So if you can join me in thanking him. And I'm going to certainly miss him. But anyway, thanks again for being here today.
Okay. Do this.